Tomoe Gozen, Japan's most fearsome female samurai. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're standing on a blood-soaked battlefield. Around you, 2,000 enemy warriors charge forward like an unstoppable wave. Your army? It's been reduced from 300 fighters to just 5. Your commander turns to you and orders you to flee. Why? Because, in his words, it would be shameful to die with a woman. But before you go, you do something incredible. You ride straight into a group of 30 enemy soldiers. You grab their most powerful fighter, a man known for having the strength of several men. You rip him from his horse, pin him against your saddle, and cut off his head. Then you vanish into history. For 800 years, people have asked, who was this warrior? And did she really exist? This is her story. Before we start, a disclaimer. This video presents legends from medieval Japanese literature alongside historical analysis. We distinguish clearly between documented facts and unverified stories. Hit that subscribe button if you want more content like this. It takes 1 second and helps to support this channel. Act 1. The World of Chaos. To understand Tomoe's story, we need to go back to a time when Japan was tearing itself apart. The year is just before 1180. Japan stands on the brink of one of the bloodiest civil wars in its history, the Genpei War, which would rage from 1180 to 1185. Powerful families are fighting for control of the entire country. On one side, the Taira clan. On the other, the Minamoto clan. This wasn't just a war between armies. According to historical records, the Genpei War marked the end of rule by the emperor's court in Kyoto and the beginning of a completely new era. An era where military leaders called shoguns would control Japan. The fighting was ruthless. Temples burned to the ground, entire families were wiped out, and natural disasters made everything worse. Typhoons, earthquakes, famines. In this brutal world, warriors were everything. They were the rock stars, the heroes, the celebrities of their time. To be a samurai meant you were respected, feared, and honored. Let that sink in for a moment. And in the middle of all this chaos, emerged someone completely unexpected. A woman named Tomoe. Act 2, the mystery of her name. But here, as something you need to know right away. Tomoe Gozen probably wasn't even her real name. In ancient Japan, it was considered extremely rude to use a woman's actual given name in public. So Tomoe referred to a circular pattern on her armor's shoulder pads. Think of it like calling someone Circle instead of using their actual name. And Gozen? That was a respectful title given to noble women, similar to how we might say lady in English. So when people spoke of Tomoe Gozen, they were basically saying lady with the circular crest. Her true name has been lost to history, which, honestly, makes her story even more mysterious. Act 3. What we actually know. Now here's where we need to be honest with you. Almost everything we know about Tomoe comes from a single source called The Tale of the Heike. This epic story was compiled around 1240, about 60 years after the events it describes. But here's the thing, it wasn't originally written down. It was performed by traveling blind musicians called biwa hoshi, who would chant these stories while playing a lute-like instrument. They traveled from town to town, entertaining audiences with tales of the Great War. The most famous written version we have today was compiled by a blind monk named Kakuishi in 1371. So what's the problem? Like many epic tales, think Homer's Iliad. The tale of the Heike includes exaggerations, religious themes, and dramatic flourishes. It's part of a genre called Gunchi Monogatari, war tales that blend historical facts with heroic storytelling. And here's the crucial detail. According to historical records, Tomoe does not appear in any primary accounts of the battles. She's not mentioned in official government documents, not in battle records from that time. So, did Tomoe really exist? Historians are divided. Some believe she's entirely fictional, created to make the story more dramatic. Others point out that women warriors definitely existed in feudal Japan, and it's entirely possible that a skilled fighter like Tomoe served in the war, even if the specific details were exaggerated over time. For this video, we're going to explore what the legends say while being completely honest about what we truly know and what we don't. Fair? Let's continue. Act 4. The description. Here's how the tale of the Heike describes Tomoe Gozen. Tomoe was especially beautiful, with white skin, long hair, and charming features. She was also a remarkably strong archer, and as a swordswoman, she was a warrior worth 1,000, ready to confront a demon or a god, mounted or on foot. A warrior worth 1,000. Think about that description for a moment. A warrior worth 1,000. In a culture that prized military skill above almost everything else, calling someone equal to 1,000 warriors was an extraordinary compliment. This wasn't just saying she was good. This was saying she was legendary. But notice something else. The description emphasizes both her beauty and her fighting ability. Beautiful, with white skin, long hair, charming features, comes right before describing her as a warrior worth 1,000. This reflects the complex attitudes of medieval Japan toward women warriors. Even in praising her combat skills, the storytellers felt the need to assure audiences that she was still feminine and beautiful. This tension between traditional femininity and warrior prowess runs through Tomoe's entire legend, and we'll see it again and again. Act 5. Women Warriors of Japan. Now, before we go further, you might be wondering, were there really female warriors in medieval Japan? The answer is yes. They were called onna-musha or onna-bugeisha, meaning female warrior, or woman of the martial arts. Women of the samurai class received training in combat, but their role was different from men. While male samurai went to war and fought for their lords, women warriors typically defended their homes and families when the men were away. And here's something fascinating. Archaeological evidence suggests that women fought more often than historical records indicate. Many written accounts were lost or never created in the first place due to the constant warfare. The weapon most associated with female samurai was the naginata, a long pole with a curved blade on the end. It was perfect for defending a home because its reach allowed a smaller person to keep larger attackers at a distance. Think of it as a combination between a spear and a sword, capable of slicing, stabbing, and even hooking an opponent off their feet. By the 16th century, the naginata had become a symbolic weapon for women of the samurai class. It would become part of a bride's dowry, passed down through families even if it was never used in actual combat. But here's what makes Tomoe's legend unusual. The tale of the Heike describes her using a different weapon, the long sword or katana, which was traditionally a man's weapon. But most scholarly sources indicate she likely would have used a naginata if she existed. She's also described as being exceptional with a bow and arrow, able to shoot while riding a horse at full gallop. These details, if true, would make her unusual even among women warriors. Act 6. Tomoe and Yoshinaka. According to the legends, Tomoe served as a warrior under Minamoto no Yoshinaka, a general of the Minamoto clan. Some versions of the story suggest they were lovers, maybe even married. Other versions describe her simply as his most trusted warrior and first captain of his forces. Yoshinaka was a complicated figure in Japanese history. He was a cousin of Minamoto no Yoritomo, the man who would eventually become Japan's first shogun. As the Genpei War raged, Yoshinaka achieved several impressive victories against the Taira clan. In 1183, Yoshinaka won a major battle at Kurikara, where his forces defeated a much larger Taira army. The Kurikara battle tactics, using cattle stampedes, are fascinating but omitted. This was a significant tactical achievement worth mentioning. The victory was so complete that Yoshinaka was able to march into Kyoto, the imperial capital, and drive out the Taira clan. For a brief moment, it looked like Yoshinaka might become the most powerful man in Japan. And this is where Tomoe's legend really begins. The tale of the Heike describes her as Yoshinaka's first captain, meaning she commanded troops in battle. At the Battle of Yokotagawara in 1181, she's credited with collecting the heads of 7 mounted warriors. 7 mounted warriors. Each one would have been a trained, armored samurai. That's an incredible feat. But Yoshinaka's triumph didn't last long. Once in Kyoto, his soldiers began causing problems, looting, acting with arrogance, failing to maintain order in the capital. The retired Emperor Go-Shirakawa, who had initially supported Yoshinaka, grew concerned about his behavior. And meanwhile, Yoshinaka's cousin Yoritomo saw him as a threat. Yoritomo had been carefully building his own power base in eastern Japan, and he couldn't allow Yoshinaka to become more powerful. So Yoritomo sent his brothers, Minamoto no Yoshitsune and Minamoto no Noriori, to hunt down and kill Yoshinaka. And this is where our story reaches its climax. Act 7, The Battle of Awazu. February 21st, 1184. Yoshinaka makes his final stand at the Battle of Awazu. According to historical records, this was a real battle that marked the end of Yoshinaka's brief period of power. His army had been reduced to just 300 warriors. They were facing an enemy force of several thousand. The odds were impossible. As the battle raged, Yoshinaka's 300 warriors were cut down, one by one by one. The fighting was brutal. Arrows filled the air. Swords clashed. Men screamed and fell. 300 became 200. 200 became 100. 100 became 50. And eventually, only 5 fighters remained: Yoshinaka, Tomoe, and 3 other warriors. They were surrounded by thousands of enemy troops. There was no hope of victory, no chance of escape. At this desperate moment, Yoshinaka turned to Tomoe, and he gave her an order that has echoed through history. You are a woman, so leave now. Go wherever you want. I will fight to the death, but it would be shameful for people to say Yoshinaka was accompanied by a woman in his last battle. Think about what this moment represents. Even as he praised her abilities, even as he trusted her with command of his troops, Yoshinaka still couldn't escape the belief that dying alongside a woman would damage his reputation. This is the complicated reality of medieval Japan. Women could be respected as warriors, but they still faced limitations that men did not. But Tomoe didn't leave immediately. Instead, she decided to perform one final act to prove her worth and secure her honor. According to the tale, Tomoe spotted a group of 30 enemy warriors. They were led by Onda no Hashiro Morshig, known as one of the strongest fighters in the entire Musashi province. A man described as possessing the strength of several men. Rather than fleeing, Tomoe rode straight toward them. She crashed into the group at full speed. She grabbed Morshig, this impossibly strong warrior, and pulled him from his saddle. She pinned him against her own saddle, and she cut off his head. Then, with this incredible feat complete, she threw away her armor and fled the battlefield. This scene has become one of the most famous moments in Japanese literature. Artists have painted it. Poets have written about it. Playwrights have dramatized it for centuries. Whether it actually happened this way, we'll never know. But the story captures something important: a warrior's final act of courage in the face of certain defeat. As for Yoshinaka, he died shortly after in the fighting, struck down by enemy arrows. His death marked another step in the Minamoto clan's path to power. But it was Yoritomo, not Yoshinaka, who would establish the shogunate and rule Japan. And Tomoe? Well, that's where the story gets even more mysterious. Act 8, The Many Endings. The tale of the Heike doesn't mention what happened to Tomoe after she left the Battle of Awazu. This silence has allowed different versions of her fate to emerge over the centuries. Let me tell you about 4 different endings to Tomoe's story. Ending number 1, the nun. One popular version claims Tomoe became a Buddhist nun and lived to the age of 91, dying peacefully around 1247. In this version, she dedicated the rest of her life to prayer and reflection, perhaps seeking spiritual peace after all the violence of war. It's a quiet ending, a contemplative ending. Ending number 2, the captive. Another account, found in a text called the Genpei Seisuki, tells a very different story. In this version, as Tomoe fled the battlefield, she was attacked by a warrior named Wada Yoshimori. Here's where it gets bizarre. He tried to strike her with a pine tree trunk, apparently having lost his sword. Tomoe broke his makeshift weapon, but was eventually overpowered and forced to become his concubine. Later versions of this story sometimes claim she bore a son who also became a famous warrior. It's a darker ending, one that strips away her autonomy. Ending number 3, seppuku. Some tailies claim Tomoe committed seppuku, ritual suicide by self-disembowelment, to avoid the disgrace of capture. This would have been considered an honorable death for a samurai, showing ultimate loyalty to the warrior code. A tragic ending, but one that maintains her honor. Ending number 4, the romantic ending. The most dramatic version says Tomoe retrieved Yoshinaka's severed head from the battlefield and walked into the sea while holding it, drowning herself so she could serve him in the afterlife. It's beautiful, tragic, romantic in the classical sense. So which ending is true? We simply don't know. It's entirely possible that all of these endings are fictional, created by storytellers over the centuries to provide closure to her legend. The truth is, Tomoe Gozen vanished from history, and maybe that's the most fitting ending of all. Act 9, the truth behind the legend. Okay, let's step back and be completely honest about what we actually know. What seems likely? Women warriors called onna-musha existed in feudal Japan and received martial training. That's documented. The Genpei War was absolutely a real conflict that transformed Japanese history. No question about that. Minamoto no Yoshinaka was definitely a real person who fought and died at the Battle of Awazu in 1184. We have records of this. The tale of the Heike was composed in the 13th century and reflects both historical events and artistic embellishment. That's well established. What is uncertain? Whether Tomoe was a real person or a fictional character created for the story. If she existed, how skilled she actually was. Whether the specific battles and feats attributed to her actually occurred. What happened to her after the Battle of Awazu, if anything, because she might not have existed at all. Historians are genuinely divided on Tomoe's existence. She appears in the tale of the Heike, but not in primary historical documents like official battle records or government papers. This absence is significant, but it's not conclusive. Many people who definitely existed also left no paper trail, especially women, and especially those of lower ranks. Some scholars argue that Tomoe may have been invented as a literary device, perhaps representing the ideal of female loyalty and martial prowess, a symbol rather than a person. Others believe she was likely real, but her exploits were exaggerated over time through oral storytelling. The way fish get bigger every time someone tells the story about the one that got away. What we can say is this: her story, whether entirely true or partly fictional, tells us important things about medieval Japanese culture. Their values, their attitudes toward women and warfare, their understanding of honor and loyalty. And sometimes, that's just as valuable as knowing whether every detail actually happened. Act 10. Why Tomoe's story matters. Whether she was a real person or a legend, Tomoe Gozen has had an enormous impact on Japanese culture and beyond. In Japan, she's celebrated as a symbol of female strength and martial excellence. The city of Kyoto holds an annual parade called the Jidai Matsuri, the Festival of the Ages, where people dress up as famous historical figures. Tomoe is one of only a handful of women included. There's a no play about her, one of only 18 warrior-focused plays out of 200 total. Her story challenged assumptions about women's capabilities. Even if exaggerated, even if partly fictional, the tale of Tomoe demonstrated that women could be skilled warriors, strategic thinkers, and courageous fighters. That was radical in a society that increasingly restricted women's roles as the medieval period progressed. In modern times, Tomoe has become an icon across multiple mediums. She appears in manga, anime, video games, novels. American author Jessica Salmonson wrote a fantasy trilogy called The Tomoe Gozen Saga. She was a character in the TV miniseries Riverworld. She's been featured in historical fiction, films, and even mobile games. Today, when people discuss women in combat roles or challenge gender stereotypes, Tomoe's name often comes up. She represents the idea that courage, skill, and strength aren't limited by gender. That women have always been capable warriors when given the training and opportunity. That's powerful. Act 11, the complexity. But we should also recognize the complicated aspects of Tomoe's legend. Even as the story celebrates her abilities, it reinforces certain limitations. Notice that Tomoe is constantly described in relation to her beauty. Her fair complexion and charming features are mentioned right alongside her fighting skills. The storytellers seemed unable to praise her combat abilities without also assuring audiences of her femininity. She serves a male lord rather than acting independently. When Yoshinaka orders her to leave the battlefield, she obeys, after proving herself one final time. Yes, but she still obeys. She disappears from history rather than continuing as an independent warrior or leader. In many ways, Tomoe's legend operates within a narrow space. She can be a warrior, but only within certain boundaries. She can be exceptional, but not so exceptional that she threatens the social order. This reflects a broader truth about historical women warriors. While they existed and achieved remarkable things, they often operated within systems that still limited their power and independence. Recognizing both their achievements and these limitations gives us a more honest and complete understanding of history. We can celebrate what they accomplished while also acknowledging the obstacles they faced. Act 12, the enduring question. 800 years later, we're still talking about Tomoe Gozen. We're still wondering if she really existed. If the stories are true. If there really was a woman who could match 1,000 warriors. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the question of whether she was real is less important than what her story represents. The possibility of female strength, courage, and skill in a world that often denied these qualities to women. Tomoe challenges us to imagine a different kind of warrior, one who doesn't fit the traditional mold, who proves that heroism takes many forms, who shows that the greatest warriors might emerge from unexpected places. Whether history or legend, her story has inspired countless people to question assumptions, to develop their own strength, to refuse limitations placed on them by society. In The Tale of the Heike, when describing Tomoe's skill, the storyteller uses a specific phrase. She was ready to confront a demon or a god, mounted or on foot. Think about that image. A woman so skilled, so fearless, that she would face supernatural beings without hesitation. That's the power of Tomoe Gozen's legend. Real or not, she represents human potential at its highest. She reminds us that courage, skill, and determination can emerge from anyone, regardless of gender or circumstance. She shows us that sometimes the most powerful stories are those that challenge what we think is possible. Conclusion. We'll probably never know the complete truth about Tomoe Gozen. We'll never know if she really did pull that strong man from his horse, if she really commanded troops at Yokotagawara, if she really lived to be 91, or died on some battlefield whose name has been forgotten. But perhaps that's fitting. Some of the most powerful stories are those that leave room for mystery, that invite us to wonder and imagine. Tomoe exists in that special space where history meets legend, or fact blurs into myth. What we do know is that her story has survived 8 centuries of telling and retelling. It has inspired art, literature, theater, and countless people who needed a reminder that strength and courage aren't limited by gender. In a way, that impact is more real and more powerful than any individual battle or feat of arms. So whether she was real or legendary, whether she was exactly as described or something quite different, Tomoe Gozen remains what the tale of the Heike called her. A warrior worth 1,000, ready to confront demon or god. And that's a legacy that transcends the boundaries between history and legend. Closing credits. The primary source for Tomoe Gozen's story is The Tale of the Heike, or Heike Monogatari in Japanese, compiled around 1240 and standardized in the Kakuichi text of 1371. According to historical records, this text is considered a Gunchi Monogatari, a war tale that blends historical events with literary storytelling. The Genpei War, which lasted from 1180 to 1185, is well documented in multiple historical sources and resulted in the establishment of the Kamakura shogunate in 1192 under Minamoto no Yoritomo. However, Tomoe herself does not appear in primary accounts of the war, which is why historians continue to debate whether she was a real person or a fictional character. If you want to learn more, check out the description below for academic sources, including works by Stephen Turnbull, Paul Varley, and translations of The Tale of the Heike by Royal Tyler and Helen McCullough. If you like this video and you would like to support us, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos like this. Until next time, walk in peace.